Hello, my friend, Brian King here. I wanted to share with you a tip that I gave to a client this morning who has ADHD, of course, and often struggles in the classroom with a lot of overload because one thing that was really pretty much typical of ADHD is there's difficulty with processing speed. Information can come at you too fast or it could come at you in too great an amount. And in either case, if it overloads your working memory, the part where you're able to hang on to the information that you need in the moment, you're able to spend enough time with it in order to transfer it to long-term memory. Well, when you got working memory issues, usually what happens is new information pushes out the old information. So it doesn't even get a chance to enter long-term memory. So you can get to the end of an entire lecture and not remember anything that's said. I mean, maybe you remember a quote here and there, or you hope that your notes captured the majority of what is important for you to know for school and so on. Now, let me interject something here. I'm very aware of the fact that there are maybe 100,000, if not more, people with ADHD who are adults. And I talk a lot about kids. Why don't I talk about adults more? Two reasons. First reason is adults don't ask me questions. Parents ask me questions. They talk about the difficulties they're having with their kids, and so I feel obliged to give them some ideas. If you want to hear more about adult ADHD, you have to ask me specifically what you want me to address. And I'll be more than happy to put the information out there because we all need these supports. The second reason is because kids are the next generation. We look at the world that we've created as adults, and if you don't think we've done a pretty lousy job, then you're seeing something that I don't, even the optimist that I am. But where we made mistakes in how we've created this world, we have a chance to prepare our kids to do a better job than we did. So I'm all about giving them the best opportunity to show up in the world with their full capacity and their full contribution, regardless of what challenges they have. In fact, I'm going to spend a lot of my time trying to change the thinking in society to remove the stigma and the prejudice around having differences of learning like ADHD, autism, and things like that. Anyway, now that I've cleared that up, let me explain to you the tip that I explained to this young lady. And keep in mind that this is something that goes against the grain of how the public school system typically likes to work. But I'm all for changing paradigms and changing systems that are broke. So I encourage you to try and implement this if it's something you think is going to work for you. So here's how it works. Your teacher is lecturing, going fast, a lot of visuals on the board or the overhead, and it's just coming at you faster than you can take it in. And at some point, your brain just says, enough. It's too fast. I can't keep up. I've lost my place. I can't think straight because there's so much coming in. I just need to stop. Because if you didn't stop, you run the risk of making yourself much more anxious, starting this internal dialogue about, oh, I'm so dumb. I can't keep up. What's the point? So not only do you need to take care of yourself, but you need to preempt that self-destructive talk. And the way you do that is you give yourself permission to say no to something that is not good for you. And what's not good for you is overwhelm, overload. You have every right, and you must set that boundary. I don't care who it's with. There's a reason I'm an entrepreneur. I couldn't do the level of self-care I needed working for somebody else. Now, it's not to say that there aren't people out there that will be that flexible with you. There are some very enlightened business owners. They're a bit of a needle in a haystack, but they're out there. So if you want to work for other people, then it's really important to keep your radar up for a person like that. But in the absence of a person like that, you still have to be empowered, confident, and assertive enough to be able to set that boundary and say no, because if I push myself, well, I'm just going to increase my likelihood for overwhelm and overload. I'm certainly not going to take in any more of the information the teacher's giving me. And I doubt I'm going to be able to produce very much, because when you're overloaded, your executive functions become even more compromised. So one of the reasons, and I come across this all the time with teachers, and this is also something that the school districts like, they talk about instruction time. Your child will miss instruction time if we allow them out of the room and take a break. And I say to them flat out, your child is missing instruction time by keeping them in the classroom. Presence does not equal attention. Just because the child is present in the room doesn't mean they're attending to what's happening. This is a kid that's likely spacing out, involved in some conversation in their head about why everything isn't working. But 9 times out of 10, if overwhelm or overload has happened, you've lost that student. So don't give me the line about the child needs to be there to receive instruction. No, the child needs some self-care in order to make it through the rest of the day. Because if they're not allowed to reboot, they're going to take that overwhelm into the next class, and now their ability to learn anything in that class is also compromised. So what do? You have an arrangement with the teacher, with a classmate, to help you fill in the gaps. Because anybody who's willing to be educated about ADHD knows that the reason why notes weren't taken, why there are big gaps in the notes, why the notes were taken down incorrectly, is because you got a glitchy brain with attention that comes in and out, in and out, in and out. So while you may be giving this linear narrative in front of the classroom, your child or your student with ADHD is catching bits and pieces that may end up not quite creating the whole you anticipated conveying to the class. So your student needs to have the right to reach out to you and say, let me clarify. I think I got some of these notes wrong. And hey, I got a little overloaded during your lecture, and I think I spaced out for about 15 minutes. Can you tell me what you talked about after this part? So now the teacher can tell you exactly what he or she was talking about. In a perfect world, you're going to have copies of the teacher's notes anyway, which is something I highly recommend for every 504 and IEP for a student that is scattered, has memory and focus issues. Get a copy of every teacher's notes. That way, if your brain does need to space out, it can, and you won't miss a whole lot. You can also work with a classmate who agrees to let you take, if you have a smartphone, if not, I highly recommend you find one, to take pictures of the notes right at the end of class so that you can compare those notes to what you've done and fill in the gaps that way. But the long and short of this is the demands of the classroom are not designed for the ADHD brain, period. So there needs to be some flexibility in there in terms of allowances for self-care so that you can be at your best as much as possible. And where those gaps exist, the staff needs to be willing to work with you to help you fill in those gaps. That's my tip. That's my strategy. You are likely going to get some pushback on some of this, but so what? These are human rights, my folks. As far as I'm concerned, it is. Human rights in that we deserve the support we need in order to be able to participate fully in society. And we need to do it with the help of our community members. Teachers, policymakers, other parents, other students. And that's part of the big change that I'm looking to create here, and hopefully you're on board with that. In any case, I hope this was helpful for you. Please leave some comments or some additional tips that you want to share. If there's other people you know that can benefit from this, share it. Tell them about it. And until we talk next, this has been Brian. Thanks for being you.